This week on Paul and Saul, we have a breaking update on a helicopter crash that took place last month in Destin. PAWS has lost again. Zebras are going extinct locally. It'll make sense in a second. We have a budget for the state, and we have a potential bill, maybe a couple years in the future, to require older people, older Americans, older Floridians, to retest much more frequently for their driver's license. We got all these stories and more with your boys, Paul and Saul. I'm Saul. He's Paul. Let's run the fun music. Welcome to Paul and Saul. I'm Christopher Saul. He is Paul Schoberg. And we have, well, no hats today. But Paul, you have a special announcement about hats.
Well, yeah, I ran out of them. I can keep repeating some of the old ones, but I need people to send me their hats. I think we have a couple that are in flight. They just didn't make it here in time. I'm going to take the opportunity to say we need some more hats. Send them in. Bald head does no good for us.
Anyway, we have a bunch of different things to talk about, starting first with a breaking news update out of Destin. Just got some news here in the last couple of hours about that helicopter crash that took place last month at Destin Executive Airport. The NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board, has made their findings in this most recent crash. It was a Timberview helicopters crash, and I'll get to why that's important in a second. They found that a bolt basically fell out, and when they started looking at a bunch of other screws and nuts and bolts that were on the helicopter, they were all only hand tightened. That's not how that's supposed to work. And
that's not good at all.
So anyway, the Saul family won't be taking any helicopter tours anytime soon. Timberview Helicopters is the only helicopter operator, tour helicopter operator out of Destin Executive Airport. Called them this morning. They said they'd get back to me as of Monday afternoon. We have not heard back. But when we do, the story that we have online just now will be updated to reflect anything that they do tell us. They have had I don't want to say litany because that's too many, but it's more than none. They've had, this is the fourth accident since 2012 involving Timberview helicopters. I believe all four of them have been at Destin Executive Airport. So it's becoming something where one might get nervous about that.
Well, they weren't grounded, right? Because I'm pretty certain when I was out on the water and around Destin for the July 4th weekend that I saw them flying around still.
So yeah, those ubiquitous red helicopters that you see flying around Destin, more than likely that's a Timberview helicopter. So something that we're definitely going to keep track of. I'm going to keep watching it and waiting for more information, more statements from Timberview, from the NTSB. So far, no stop orders or anything like that. So we'll see how that changes or if it does at all here in the next couple of weeks. But of course, we will keep watching it for you here at midbaynews.com. Now, Paul, I know this is probably your favorite topic here on the story or on our story list today. It's more PAWS. It's more PAWS information. So why don't you just kick this one for us?
Talk about something else that's falling from the sky. It's PAWS's revenue.
Yeah, it's not great.
Yeah,
basically, what's going on here, man?
I mean, they've been pushing the envelope on price with the various municipalities in the area, and all the municipalities have started to push back, and now they're just starting to lose the municipalities altogether. So I think there's now 3 of them that have basically said we're done with PAWS.
Yeah, so Niceville, Mary Esther, and I believe it is Crestview. Crestview has been, I think was pretty much the first one to get out, as it were.
PAWS and I think Destin now too, right?
Yeah, and Destin, thank you. That is, so there have been 4 at this point, 3 this year, that have decided to part ways with PAWS. And so they're looking at what they say is a $750,000 deficit. I actually had a very long conversation with city manager of Niceville, David Deitch, this week. And he says, he's been part of this back and forth. And he says he wants to continue to have a meeting or potentially have meetings with them. He's reached out to them. And at this point, he's kind of like, well, they haven't gotten back to me. So, but he says, he was looking at the numbers that were provided to him. And he says that this deficit that they're claiming doesn't include, county money that's coming in, donation money that's coming in, stuff like that. So how much are they really in a hole? Until we see the books, we really just don't know. But they're saying that, hey, we take in 3,100 animals a year. We're pretty much the option for animal control. Florida state law doesn't require county or city governments to provide animal control. So in theory, we could just not have it at all, which would be, I would say, not amazing.
No, it'd not be great. I mean, I think here's where I'm having personally a little bit of pause fatigue. It's people are very passionate about pets, and I understand that. I love my dog. In fact, she's at my feet right now as I'm taping this with you, Christopher. But like the berating of municipalities and how they need to step up and pay more is just not working. I think there are a lot of people out there that are actually doing PAWS a disservice. It's somewhat of a broken business model. You cannot count on the municipalities alone to cover the cost of these things. And so, when the price got too high, they decided to bring it in house and manage things themselves. And they have every right to do that. They have a fiduciary duty to taxpayers and their municipalities to do the economic thing. And I think PAWS supporters are like, well, there's going to be a degradation to pets, and this is a terrible thing. But I don't know. NICEL's running at like 6 months now, almost without PAWS, I think, and I'm not hearing a lot of complaints of the overrunning of animals suddenly. So maybe it
So
was a
yeah,
smart decision.
I'm really glad I had this conversation with City Manager Deitch because he gave me a lot of their stats and numbers. And if I recall correctly, they've had something like 30 animal control calls in the last 6 months. So uh, 30 times the estimated $700 that it costs per animal is what PAWS says is three times, what is that, $21,000, whereas we were paying somewhere in the neighborhood, or they were being asked to pay in the low six figures. So it's it looks to me like the city of Niceville has made a pretty smart financial decision. Whether or not that means that it's good for the animals or the people, that's in the eye of the beholder. What do we owe our animals? That's in the eye of the beholder. But at the end of the day, it's significantly less expensive than going with PAWS, especially when you consider, for example, PAWS made a argument in Destin that they took in $31,000 worth of animals and only got paid 5,800 just because they base off of per capita how many people live in the city. So you could say that they were balancing the books off of Niceville in the past to cover for places with smaller populations like Destin.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know if this is going away anytime soon. I think the municipalities have spoken, and I think it's the trickle down effect is going to keep happening, and PAWS better start looking for other sources of revenue.
Yeah. So if you want to hear both sides of the story, both from the municipality and from PAWS itself, we have both of those stories online right now. But until then, I think we should move on to something near and dear to both of our hearts, and that's high school football and the shortage therein of referees and various officials right now. I did a story a couple of years ago talking about the critical shortage of referees, and I am not thrilled to report it hasn't gotten any better. Our colleague Garrett Gesh has put out another story where he talks to the FHSAA about what they're doing about the shortage. The answer is there's not a whole lot they can do until they get more bodies and seats. And that doesn't look like it's going to be something that's happening anytime soon.
I mean, let's be honest, who wants that job? It's super challenging. It's thankless, and parents are terrible. I blame this on parents, to be honest with you. Like, who wants to, like, you can't just become a high school referee. You have to start at other levels and work your way
Mm-hmm.
up. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I don't know, if someone's interested in being an umpire or a referee and they're starting at a middle school level and they're just getting chewed out by parents left and right and complaining and blah blah blah, no one can get the skill sets or stay in the job long enough to become a high school one. And then the people who do matriculate out of that into high school and they're any good at high school are trying to get to college and the pros as quickly as possible.
Yeah, because that's where the actual decent pay is. So I had a colleague at the county, Okaloosa County, Jason Autry, who's now a deputy county administrator, and I think he refs SEC football now. But at the time when I, was working directly with him, he was a Sunbelt ref. And Sunbelt refs for the 10 games that they get paid about $30,000 a year. So it's not even like it's a full-time gig. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's Saturdays, but there's, game tape and all that other stuff that they have to put in work, but it's not necessarily like a full-time gig, right? And like the amount of hate you get, I mean, look, as a reporter that has to like kind of like report stuff and has people mad at me both sides, just go read the comments section if you don't believe me. I can tell you it's not the most fun part of my job, but like it's definitely a calling. But if you are a young man just out of college and like, hey, I'd love to get back to the sports that made me who I am, and then you go in there and you get yelled at by some 13-year-old's dad, like No thanks, bud.
I mean, it's actually like I think more difficult to take the lumps at the lower levels because
Hmm.
the faces are right there, the people are right there, the parents can follow you out to your car. I mean, at the at the college level, it's sort of like, oh, the whole stadium's mad at me, but they're not necessarily following you to your car or your hotel room afterwards. Let's hope not. But
I hope, yeah. I mean, that does now that does happen. I remember there was a game where Jason refereed against like an Arkansas. It was like the Razorbacks versus I want to say it was like LSU or somebody, and he made a call that I guess was controversial. And there was somebody on the Okaloosa County Twitter who had found out that he worked at Okaloosa County. On every single thing we tweeted was like, "You have Jason Autry, and he is a liar and a backstab." I'm like, this is over like, and Arkansas, like I think might have won 3 games that year. Like it wasn't like they were like gunning for an SEC championship.
yeah, but
So
the real problem behind this, right, is that now with the shortage, you have less referees and you have to
mhm.
spread these games out over the quarter, the course of a week. So, the ones who stick around are doing it, now they're working Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and we don't have a pure Friday night lights anymore.
Yeah, you don't have a Friday Night Lights, and then like the JV games have to get refed by somebody, right? The freshman games have to get refed by somebody. Basketball, baseball, all these other sports, somebody's got to do it. And when there's just not enough bodies to go around, that means that the FHSAA is going to have to make some serious hard calls about like what sports they sanction in the future. I mean, maybe there's not enough refs for lacrosse in 5 years. Maybe there's not enough refs to do all these different basketball, sections like from single A to 7A. Maybe there's not.
Yeah, there's some umpires and referees though, man. They're hustling and they're making some money, so good on them.
Right on. Well, moving on to another state issue besides a desperate referee shortage, the budget has been signed by the governor, and I have great news for you, Emerald Coastians. We didn't get a whole lot of cuts. I think we asked for 20 or 25 different things, and for the most part, they got they got signed into the budget. This was supposed to be a pretty lean year from all the scuttlebutt, especially with the hurricanes that we had in Central Florida last year. The marching orders apparently from the governor's mansion were cut, 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 and we escaped most of those cuts.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I think the total budget was 115 billion for 2025, 2026. Includes over $2 billion in tax cuts, about 600 million in line item vetoes statewide, and like you said, Okaloosa Walton County secured good chunk of change. I think $87 million
Yeah,
worth
so
of
it
funding.
was It was roughly, yeah, in that $80 million range. But the thing that was amazing was what the number of or the amount of stuff that got cut. I think it was a total of like $800,000. So I think we got 99% of the stuff that we
That's
got
amazing.
written into the budget, which does not happen. I mean, I've been watching state government for a decade now, and I can remember in 20 I want to say 2016 we asked for new buses for the school district. We had the oldest bus fleet in the state, and Governor Rick Scott at the time vetoed the I think 20 or 22 million dollars for new buses. And it just kind of went away, right? And a lot of stuff would get cut line item because it's just easier to cut it like that, right? And so for all this stuff to get through, I think is a testament to our state legislative delegation. That's not an easy sell, and they were able to do it. So good on you guys. And I'm excited for what this means. I mean, public school money, water system upgrades, gateway and lighting infrastructure for 331, like that stuff in the past might not have made it. So a big win for us here locally in this budget.
Yeah, it's awesome. And like you said, very little got cut, and so hopefully those projects can make up their funding deficits somewhere else.
Right on. And I don't know if you saw this story that Colin Bester did last week, but I thought it was very interesting. And I think it's very theoretical, right? So this isn't something that's actually in the actual state legislature. This took place in Girls State. A gal from Niceville High School who's a rising senior, her name's Karis Hansen, put together a mock bill for what's called Girls State, which is kind of like Model UN, but
Hmm.
local.
Yeah.
And basically, this bill came out from a lady in her, I believe, her 80s, her 90s, hit and killed a young man. And it was an accident. She was an elderly driver. They weren't sure what was going on, and the onus behind this became this mock bill that passed through the girl state legislature with the hope that, hey, maybe we could get older people with driver's license to retake those tests to recertify more frequently, so stuff like this doesn't happen in the future. Because I'm certain that that lady that hit this kid didn't want to hurt him at all, right? But that's what ended up happening. And so it's one of those things that balances like the freedom of an individual and the rights of an individual versus the rights of the rest of the motoring public. So what do you think about something like this? Something that you'd want to see the governor sign one day?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I looked at what they're proposed. I think it was retesting every 2 years after the age of 70,
Hmm.
and annual retesting after the age of 90. I think we should. I don't know what the right numbers are. I think we should have some sort of legislation that's like that. I'm also a big proponent of technology, and so I'm
Hmm.
hoping, if this isn't passed in the next couple of years, hopefully technology and self driving kind of catches up and um, some of these Tesla cars are already driving better than 70-year-olds and 90-year-olds anyway.
Well, it's nice because it makes it a non-issue, right? Like it makes it to where, yeah, that'd be horrible if these cars, hit these, kids on bikes and stuff. But if there's something that automatically does it, I mean, it's essentially it's analogous to like a mass transit kind of situation, but you get the individual. I think, and you know much more about the Muskian universe than I do,
Sure.
but my understanding is that his ultimate goal is to have like Teslas is like almost owned by a group, and then people can just order one whenever they need a ride. It's super cheap and it's super effective, and people don't have to worry about it in the long term.
Yeah, that's pretty close. So like on the West Coast right now, you have a Waymo, which I think is like a Google based company
Hmm.
that's basically driving people around with no driver in them. And then about a couple of weeks ago, Elon Musk is doing a test run with Tesla in Austin, Texas for a very similar service, and he calls it Robotaxi. And so, yeah, I think we're headed in a direction. I don't know how long it's going to take where, these Tesla cars and Waymos will just be available for subscription pickup. And, some of these folks who are relying on their own vehicles and they're getting older and a little unsafe will at least have another option. So
Well, thank you so much to our donors this week. Michelle is our donor this week, and she helps us to do stuff like this, like Paul and Saul, but she also gets some bonuses. This week, we rolled out two new things: a brand new exclusive newsletter that gives you a sneak peek at the week ahead. So, looking at various council agendas and stories that we're going to debut later in the week. You'll have first knowledge and a little bit of a rundown as to what is going on in the area before anybody else does. And as another piece of, or another benefit, I should say, is that we have a new exclusive Facebook group for people that are monthly donors. You can go in there. We're discussing all kinds of stories like this. We'll probably be discussing later this week. It's a really thoughtful group. It's a group where people can kind of state their opinions, and it's not like, you know, the good neighbors of Niceville or whatever. You don't have to worry about like a random person spewing a bunch of hate because hey, I'm moderating it. And I tend not to allow ad hominem attacks. And so, great place, great community for us to get together, talk about local news, talk about ideas and what could be good for the community going forward. So if you want to join that, midbaynews.com/donate is where you can actually sign up and join that community. And once I get that notification that you've signed up, boom, we let you in the group. We send you an email and you're able to join those things. And then, of course, you get that weekly email in your inbox as well. So, Paul, you're a member of the group. What do you think so far?
I am. I think it's going to be fantastic. It's an opportunity for those of you who really care about the community and continuing to receive news to not only donate to the Mid Bay News cause, but be an insider. Maybe even bring some stories to the table, things that you're seeing in the community. You can share it in the group, and it may turn into a Mid Bay News story. I'm in there. Some other local leaders are in there as well. So it's an opportunity to interact with us. And maybe in the future, we'll have some like in person meetups and some other cool special things for being a Mid Bay News supporter or a Mid Bay News newsie.
Yeah, and that's phase 2B, as it were, to be or not to be, haha. But we would love to have you in there. We'd love to have conversations about what the future of our community looks like, and that can all be done in the Mid Bay Newsies community. And we hope to see you there soon. Looking ahead, we have a couple of things going on this week. Niceville City Council is going to meet. We have a couple of other government meetings that are taking place this week. Crestview City Council is going to meet. But the two of the big things I want to talk about are both happening in Walton County, as you can imagine, because, hey, everybody loves a good explosion. So Walton County's budget hearing is taking place tomorrow morning. They'll be discussing everything from, how much they're going to spend on paper clips to how many trucks they need for the mosquito control department. Well, I guess they have a special district down there, but you get the idea. Lots of money being moved around, especially with all that tourism money that's in the area. Other thing that's happening in Walton County, there is going to be a motion discussed, not necessarily passed because they got to vote on it, to hire Clay Atkinson, the interim county attorney for the last 4 years. By the way, he's outlasted like 40 county administrators as the interim. And then the newest county administrator, who will be, they'll both be up for a vote. And the vote has a clause in it. And instead of being able to fire a county administrator or a county attorney with 3 votes, now you'd need 4. So super majority time, Paul, over there in Walton County to force a little bit of stability in that area. Your thoughts?
No, I like that part. I you said it. Stability in Walton County is exactly what's needed, and
It is at a
so
premium.
yeah. So I mean, if you're gonna do something to force it, I think that's good. I guess we'll find out how they all vote on it and how it all works out. But yeah, I think that's a good idea.
And in lighter, but just as important news, Gary Gesh, our sports, I would say, I don't want to say maven, but our sports expert here at Mid-Bay News is going to start his trip around the Emerald Coast to talk to 12 of the most important football programs as we prepare for football season. So your usual suspects are going to be on there. Niceville, Crestview, Fort Walton Beach is going to be there, Choctaw, as well as some smaller schools that I think are going to have a breakout season. So I'm looking at you, Destin High School. I'm looking at potentially, look, I don't want to say it too soon, but I think Milton is going to be halfway decent this year. I'm not saying they're going to go to the playoffs or anything, but I'm interested to see what they do. South Walton and Walton are always great rivals and usually punch above their weight in the area. And then we're looking at other schools like Childs, which is in the same district as Niceville. So you'll have a run of the gamut. You'll have all the information you need to know going into the football season. We'll have a lot of information to use as we progress throughout the season. So it won't just be like, well, we heard this one guy's pretty good. We'll have in-depth information firsthand from Gary that's going to be starting here in the next couple of weeks. So he's doing a lot of research. He's, going by candlelight, getting the ink and the quill out, and he's getting all the information at early hours in the morning. The man's a hustler.
Well, Christopher, we have our own YouTube channel for Paul and Saul. I would suspect that he's going to put all of his content on the other YouTube channel.
And that is correct. Thank you for reminding me, Paul. Look at you. I don't know what I'd do without you. Anyway, so yes, Emerald Coast Sports Show is where all of Garrick's football content will take place. And then it is available commonly on our Facebook page. It's kind of where we throw everything because, hey, that's kind of where y'all are. So the more information we get, the more we'll be able to give to you guys. So we're really looking forward to Garrick's stuff. And of course, we couldn't do it without our sponsors. And as you might guess, Steve Shutt is a big sponsor of ours. I am sitting here in the Steve Shutt Movement Mortgage Studio, and Paul is at the Steve Shutt Movement Mortgage Remote Studio. And we're thankful to Steve and his team for allowing us a place to sit and talk, or some people might say bloviate, about local news, local sports, and all those other things. And he is a key member of this community because, as you might know, you're probably going to need a mortgage at some point, unless, of course, you're independently wealthy, have tons of money, and are really, really ready to drop it at a moment's notice on a cash offer. If that's not the case for you, you want to talk to Steve because he will make sure that not only do you get a really good deal on a mortgage, he'll make sure that he's with you every step of the process so you don't get fleeced, you don't get robbed, you don't have to end up paying for something. He's a big proponent of like, look, if you pay for this thing now, it's not going to hurt you later. He makes sure that you get all of those good, well thought out deals. So big thanks to Steve for sponsoring this show, and big thanks to Steve for being a good old buddy.
There we go. Steve Shutt, Moving Mortgage. Use him and his team.
All right. So no interview this week. Segment 4 is, of course, our community notes. So
You want me to do it?
please do it. These are good, by the way. I've got some good ones for you this week.
Welcome back from the break. And right now we're going to go over community notes and mailbag, where you guys have made comments on social media and other places, and we get to comment on them. So here
Yeah.
we go. What about the first one from Neil Shermer in regards to referee shortage? You want to read that one?
So Neil Shermer, not first time poster, not first time commenter, friend of the show. I would even argue to say the man's on our socials, and so I appreciate you, Neil. He says I'm going to get out on a limb and say they're getting paid a ridiculously low amount. I see a lot of money coming in at the games. I'm sure if they use $1 from the admission and a small percentage of the concessions, turn the 50-50 into a 60-40 maybe. And I think it's reasonable to pay high school refs $300 a game. Work it out. And to his point, I think there was another commenter who has refed in the past. He said he got paid for about 7 or 8 hours of work from driving from his house to the game and then driving back. All told, he made about $100. And so, if you live in Crestview and you're driving to Mariana for a football game, that might cover your gas, and you get the added benefit of being yelled at by people you don't know.
No, that's terrible. I mean, if that's all you're making, that's absolutely terrible. I know that there are softball umpires and stuff that are making 50 to 75 bucks a game, and then sometimes they're doing 2 or 3 games a day at the same location. Those guys are actually making more money than the high school football referees. That
Per
seems,
hour,
yeah,
absolutely.
that seems crazy to me. It seems crazy.
And moving on down, Jason Harwell, he's talking to us in reference to that accident that took place last Friday on State Route 20 by Bay Drive. So if you know where that laundromat is, he says the individual that was life flighted was my dad. He's a 73-year-old retired colonel from the U.S. Army, served over 40 years. He retired to Blue Water Bay roughly 20 years ago, and he is known and loved by many. He is alive. He's banged up pretty bad. He's currently in the ICU. He has suffered 5 broken ribs, fractured spine, collapsed lungs, and no pulse in his right leg. When he arrived at the hospital off of life flight, they did an emergency surgery to remove the fluid so his lungs could expand. He currently has 2 tubes in his chest to continue drainage of blood and fluid. He has to undergo numerous surgeries and has a long road of recovery ahead. So the good news is he's alive. The bad news is that was a hard thing to go through.
Jason, thanks for leaving your comment. We're praying for Colonel Harwell, somebody who has given his life to the U.S. military and serving for over 40 years. You've been through some hard things already, sir. I know that throughout your career, and we'll be praying for you as you go through this. Jason, I hope you'll give us some updates on your dad at some point too.
Absolutely. And then we got multiple comments about the fireworks over Boggy Bayou. The majority of them were positive. Some of them were more mixed. Somebody said, great fireworks, music, all caps, sucked, way too loud. And that was a comment that I saw for last year's as well. Somebody else said, well, I have to say the music wasn't nearly as loud as before. And even though it wouldn't be my choice, it's not so bad. And if it makes people happy, then I can deal with it. Great fireworks show. And that, friends, is the right mentality. But yeah, so everybody seemed to enjoy the fireworks, lots of fireworks. I mean, we put a lot of money collectively as a community into the 4th of July fireworks show. So I'm glad it went off without a hitch. Saw some great photos from the weekend. I got to go see my best friend's new baby son. So I was not in Niceville for 4th of July for the first time in like a decade, but it was worth it. So,
yeah, I mean, big ups to the city. The show is tremendous. I watched it, from the banks of the bayou, and I thought it was fantastic. And I think they took some great shots via drone. I think they have video and some photo that they put up on their own Facebook page. I thought it was great. I don't think I need music to go along with it. I was far enough away. I didn't actually hear any of the music, but I enjoyed the show from where I was. And I think the only downside was that we had that sewage spill and nobody could get in the water. But other than that, it went fairly well. And it mustn't have been too bad. None of those sparks sent the whole bayou ablaze. So
can you imagine if it caught on fire, the whole bayou? Like, what was was it Pittsburgh where the river caught on fire, or Cleveland? It was Cleveland. The Mistake by the Lake. That's what it's called. Okay, I'm back.
I'm sure the River Thames at some point was also lit on fire too, I think.
I think every big city has accidentally lit the river on fire. I think it's like a rite of passage for large cities. Anyway, Charlotte Bodeler Stovall says about the PAWS contract, the way I've been reading it is it isn't the cities backing out. It's PAWS not wanting to negotiate the contracts and walking away. A little bit of both, right? So in talking with David Deitch, who I've talked with multiple times because that's kind of my beat here at Mid-Bay News, is the Niceville beat. He says that, they wanted to talk, but they also said, we're not going to do it at this rate. And if you're not willing to do that, we're not going to do it. We're not going to continue it. So he let the contract lapse in December of this past year. So the contract that Niceville had with PAWS ended in September, ended with the fiscal year 24. And they had a month to month while they were negotiating. And finally, City manager Deitch said, like, we're out, we're not doing this. You can cancel our contract after, I guess, some further negotiations broke down. So it's kind of both, right? Like, ultimately, it's PAWS making a demand and not having it met. And then the city's kind of like either letting it lapse or actively saying, we're out.
Maybe PAWS is just changing the business model and just getting out of municipalities. And that's the way I'm leaning now. Like, I'll give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. Like, okay, you don't want to pay our price. We're not going to service that you anymore. We're going to shrink our business down and our non-for-profit down and only take in the amount of animals that we can take in from, areas and geographies that aren't currently covered by animal control. Maybe that's their plan. I don't know.
Well, I guess we'll find out together. And that is what we have for you on the show this week. Just a quick reminder of our headlines for this week. A big helicopter crash in Destin last month. The National Transportation Safety Board has released its finding, and brother, they are not great. PAWS has lost another contract over in Destin. Zebra shortage. Zebra. What did I say at the beginning? It's a zebra, not
Zebra
extinction,
shortage.
endangerment. They're becoming endangered species, and we need them in order to have our local sports ball. So make sure that you support your local ref. The budget passed in the state, and it meant a lot of good stuff for our local area. Okaloosa and Walton County both won significantly, got most of the stuff that they asked for. And finally, there is a theoretical bill put together by a Niceville high school senior that would require people over the age of 70 to get a driver's test at some frequency. We discussed that. And of course, as always, all the stuff is in the show notes. And if you like this show and want to help us out, please consider subscribing, hitting the bell button for the alert so that when we premiere our show, you get it first. And as always, keep us in your thoughts when you're on your Facebook and looking for other things to subscribe to. We're on all of your social media. midbaynews.com/newsletter is where you can sign up and get us there. Plenty of options in order to get your local news from Midbay News.
Send me a hat.
Please send Paul a hat. His head gets burned so very easily.
I'm avoiding that this summer. It's been good. Be nice,
because of the
Niceville.
hats.
Yeah, because of the hat.
Yeah.
Be nice, Niceville.
You hurt the man.
See ya.